Be creative. Don't be afraid. There are rules that are ties that free. Why? Because you're engaged in what you believe. Don't be afraid if it's wrong. What's meaningful is that you're driven. People tell you what to avoid, what to believe in, and you absorb it as a sponge, and then you soak it, and it comes out to be the essence of who you are. You can play music from a score, from somebody else, from times immemorial, but it's yours during the moment you recreate it. Or you don't want to recreate it, you want to exactly perform it, but in fact, there is no way. It is something so special that you seize the moment where you have the opportunity to be close to it actively. And when you're the listener and you're informed listener, then you can be discerning. And that's the beauty about education and cultivation, is that you question. And by questioning, you are shaping your intellect to understand things you couldn't reach to understand, that some people thought, heard, imagined, painted, or composed, or wrote in words or languages that are new or different, or organizing the same words in a way that gives another meaning, and you're bedazzled by all this, perhaps lost in translation, but ultimately, no matter how much you receive and how much is around you, in competitivity, in expectation, in formatting of producers, festivals, organizers, gurus of music, popular or very elite, you individually are the universe by yourself. And so you have to be there unleashing it. And it's very difficult to do because people constantly discourage you. People make you feel that you're silly, unfit, not cultivated enough or educated, but not necessarily by itself, but their way. And everybody has their way as the way. And I think that with age you realize that there is not but your way. And even if there is existing formats from editions, publications, recordings, other people's points of view of the piece you play, or of way to write a piece, or to imagine a piece, to improvise a piece, or perhaps with artificial intelligence to let the piece be written. But somebody inputs the ingredients in order to be cooked. And those ingredients are in the human mind, the soul, culture, or perhaps even in its immemorial memory of its lineage. And people travel and get fascinated by musical cultures of different people and times. And it's either mysterious, either belittled by our own understanding, because after all, it's very difficult in a lifespan to have the time to learn every language, to understand every subtlety of every expression of art form that exists in different cultures. And in classical music of the European, let's say, 17th to 19th century, played on modern pianos for audiences that are globalized and that have little knowledge of the stylistic difference between Monteverdi and Gershwin, other than it's classical, or that think that most pieces are songs because perhaps files, in any case tracks, and that the concept of pure music versus music without text, or the text is implied in the gesture of the melodic line, the phrasing structure, the organization of the harmonic motion, or even if it's atonal, the way it's disorganized in its own way of being organized. All these are ways that demand more than we have time to explore. So it's easy for us to either ignore or reject or criticize and say, this is not right, it's not mine, or it's not supposed to be that way, already in juries of interpretation for performers, and editions who give us the rules about how to play the unmeasured notes, like the grace notes on the beat or not on the beat. And all these people who you revere ultimately have to be as possibly forgotten after they have been heard. And not necessarily forgotten because you reject them, it's just because you need to search within yourself what it all means to you. And that ultimately all the skills that you acquire that are very necessary have to be part of a musicianship if you are a musician. Therefore, before you're a performer or an instrumentalist or a singer or a chamber musician or a theorist or whatever you are, a composer or perhaps transcriber, it all comes down to the fact that the education is streamlined more today than before by skill basis and not by knowledge about the way to organize your thoughts. And then you can therefore very awaken by your curiosity and by your love for the music that you play. If it's written by somebody else, you question it. You don't rewrite it, you perhaps improvise it, you in part embellish it differently, regardless if that was a tradition that is lost from a century that is no more. It's kind of Atlantis of music interpretation. I think you need to be in unison with what it means to you to be a musician in this piece, for today's people around you, or just for what it means to you, for your inner pantheon of what it means. Because you look at yourself in the mirror, the soul, and you say, why am I doing all this? To please who? Parents, teachers, juries, auditions for positions. Of course, all these are the skills that we are taught in order to pass through the hurdles and prove ourselves. And then ultimately, perhaps once you become, let's say, academically, if it is respected, you can do a conference about being free within a style and improvise in Mozart style or in Beethoven style or in your own style. And not only recite the notes of the edition that is the let's say, revealed truth for most of the musicians in the juries, auditions, and exams. But that is only because you already have established a certain reputation and people give you credit. And if you do it without having that, then you're a niche person put in a skill corner and people say, oh, this person is just weird. And it's incredible how it's easy to criticize people who think outside of the box, like a Glenn Gould in the 60s already did, and the other pianists didn't even comprehend his approach that was so iconoclastic, while pedantic in a certain way also. But it was him, and that's why you have to be you. And that's why I'm the hyphen between Mademoiselle Boulanger's thinking of teaching, not just the skills of her way of teaching and the way she was taught, but her open-mindedness to be giving you rigorousness in your studies as well as creativity in your being musically. Daring, respectful, but creative, and ultimately in unison with your calling. If not, you feel constantly out of place. You're constantly told you're not supposed to do this, that way, think that way, compose that way, interpret that way, and you feel like you're surrounded by censors, and the ultimate trouble is that they make you become your own self-censor. Oh, I shouldn't, I couldn't, I will not, I rather not. I mean, all this was done before me. I've heard this so often. And I understand that it's easier said than done, but what I'm trying to say here is that no matter how difficult it is, if it's your principal mode of expression and living in life through music, or if music is your inner garden while you're developing other skills for societal needs and that brings you the income and the necessary existence in society, if it's what matters to you for your intellect, curiosity, that's wonderful. But at all levels, music should remain something that you do honestly, in the sense of you have a credibility about some things that are there, the honesty of serving the muse, and believe in yourself, even sometimes if it means to swim against the tide, because you have beliefs. And you're free to change them with time, but you have to have them. It's not being headstrong, it's having self-esteem. And I find that, of course, you have to be courteous and understanding that others don't believe the way you do in the music, or the way you're supposed to think it, write about it, interpret it, perform it, or not perform it that way. Okay? But you can agree to disagree. And then you develop your groove, your path ahead. And I think that this is the most important, is to not give up, not worry about only what you're told, but only worry about you tell yourself. And if I can be positively helpful, is to always say, I believe in your individuality that contributes to the general existence of all of us making music. And that is so important. We don't all sound alike, we don't try to be different for the sake of it, we are just trying to find our voice in unison with our path into this tradition that shouldn't be squeezing us with the rules, but should give us the opportunity to rethink even within it how to do it. Not necessarily only by rewriting the order of the notes like another dodecaphonic order. And why not? That is another rule that can be reset if you create your own alphabet to write your own novel, because your narrative demands it and your storytelling needs it. And if not, you can use the skills that exist and still express yourselves individually without to be imitative or in the style of somebody only. And even if you borrow, then it is a borrowing, but at least it's part of what you have to say, because nobody is self-born. Everybody comes from something, and rejecting or accepting that legacy is part of accepting who we are ahead. And I find that very important, to be always very respectful of the music, and iconoclastic with the music too, because that's how you respect it, is because you question it, and cultivated, educated people learn how to think, therefore to be critical. Not to be critical as a means at an end, but to be the tool for their own existence in life, to create ways of thinking, organizing, teaching, bringing ahead the message that they believe in, that they received from the preceding generations. And now that we store most things compared to the past, where mostly nothing was stored, we have access to understand how people believed, understood, heard, performed, and thought and composed music, and how we can do it either not, if we think already everything was done, which I don't believe is right. I think within even the traditional way there are new grooves to develop that is yours, if that's what it's your calling. And if not, then develop side grooves. And I'm just very supportive of people being creative, well respectful and courteous and incredibly cultivated in order to be humble enough, but believing in themselves. It's not unnecessarily disconnected from each other. It's important to be encouraged to be yourself. If anything, this is probably the message Mademoiselle Boulanger always asked to all of us, ultimately through who were around her, studying different seeking different things from our own individual paths happening to be together around her. Is who you are, who are you, and what do you do? So do it. Be it. It's jubilant and it's scary, but it's worth it. And it makes people inspired. And if some criticize, then fine. You don't do it to be understood by everybody. You do it to be in unison with your own belief. You're not afraid of it.